Well, Razorback fans, another week of fall practices in the books for the Arkansas Razorbacks, the Diamond Hogs. On today's Locked On Razorback podcast, I'm going to be giving you 5 position players and 5 pitchers who I feel have had the most notable, most worth talking about standout performances in fall practice for the Razorbacks.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So before I begin listing out some of these names, I do just want to clarify what we're doing here. This is not necessarily the 5 best players on the team, the 5 best hitters and 5 best pitchers, although some of these guys are certainly in that group and would fit that description. But to me, it's about what have been the 5 most notable developments, at least from a pitching standpoint, hitting standpoint, and performances that have really caught my eye. Like, for example, Vahiva Aloy. The guy's been really good. He's hitting over 300. He showed off plenty of power. He's been really good in the field as well. He's been very good at baseball. I am not going to include him in my 5 standout hitters from fall practice, even though he's probably among the top 5 best, because we kind of expect Vahiva Aloy to be good. I don't necessarily consider it a stunning, notable development that he is good at baseball. In fact, if we had been doing this a year ago, I would have definitely had him in this list. But I feel like there's some other performances that have really caught my eye, and I wouldn't say surprised me, but I at least feel like are more notable developments that we need to get into here. But I am going to start in the Aloy family because I'll tell you, one of the first ones that, frankly, I didn't see coming 100% is his little brother, Kahio Aloy. The transfer from BYU, who had a nice freshman season. He hit 269, had 9 home runs, like showed off some pop. And I mean, he started every day in the Big 12, which is not worth nothing at all. It's nothing to scoff at. When he first committed to Arkansas, I felt like, one, we all knew his brother, and we thought, okay, that kind of makes sense that his brother would come over and be a part of the team. And I don't know if I necessarily considered him a guy who they were bringing in to start right away. Who knows, if he's going to end up at DH, first base, like, didn't know a position he would play at. And so I got to be honest, I feel like I overlooked him and didn't give him enough credit as a serious candidate to be a fixture in this Arkansas lineup. And it honestly took him about 2 weeks to really find his footing here in fall practice. But guys, to say that he's had a loud performance over the last 2-3 weeks would be an understatement. I've literally lost track of the number of home runs he's hit. And these aren't no baby home runs. These aren't little wall scrapers. They're just kind of getting over there into the bullpen. He's hitting balls 405, 410, 424 feet, hitting them to Oppo. You pull one every now and then. Like, this dude has as much pop as just about anyone on the team, man. And it's really starting to show up. I remember when we spoke to DVH prior to fall practice, he said some of the highest exit velocities he sees come from Kahio Aloy's bat, which obviously you see his brother. You see kind of the power that's in that family. So it's probably not the most stunning thing for you guys to hear. That baby Aloy's got some pop as well. But I'll tell you, man, it's really starting to show up on the field, and it's been impressive. Like, it's been more impressive than I frankly expected it to be. So he and Vahiva are different builds a little bit. Like, Vahiva, they list him at like 6'2", 215. I almost feel like he's closer to 6'4". Like, he's just that long, rangy type. Kahio's a little bit shorter, stockier. Now they list him at 6 foot, 6'1". He's not a short guy, but he's a little bit like, he's upper body heavy. Like, he's got big arms, like different build than his brother. But the swing actually looks pretty similar. But here's what's interesting about what Kahio's been doing. I mentioned that he's hit him to opposite field. At least 2 of his home runs, maybe 3, have gone to right field. And that's where I would say the vast majority of his hits overall, like a lot of his base hits, are also line drives to the right side of the field. It seems like his swing path just kind of favors that type of situation. Reminds me a little bit of Christian Franklin. When he was early in his career, a lot of his best swings would be to right center. It's just kind of the way his swing path works. And so Kahio looks like he has a little bit of that. And when you're talking about a guy who's stepping up in level of competition that he's facing, not like the Big 12 is anything to scoff at. And he got some legitimate experience there at BYU last year. But those are some of the questions you ask. Hey, he's coming to the SEC. He's going to be facing a lot of velo. How is that going to feel for him? And seeing him barrel up all these balls to the right side is such an encouraging sign. Nothing's wrong with pulling the ball. I mean, there's a lot of hitters, some of the best hitters you'll ever see, that are very pull heavy. But when you're talking about a guy and his production coming from one level to the next, that's one of the big questions you have is, hey, you're going to be facing better pitchers. How is your swing going to adapt to that? To say that he's adapting pretty well, again, that's kind of selling him short because he's been crushing Arkansas pitching the last few weeks, and he's really been on a tear here lately. So we'll see if he's able to keep it up. But in terms of just seeing what he's been able to do, I've been really impressed, guys. I think he's a serious candidate to start at first base for Arkansas, and I could end up being a DH as well. But he's been playing a lot over there at first base, and he's currently leading the competition in my eyes. I know Michael Anderson's another guy transferred from Rhode Island who's starting to put it together a little bit. The light bulb's coming on. He's starting to show off some of that power that he's got. And so we'll see how this competition plays out. But as of right now, man, if Kahio Aloy is very much a factor in the first base discussion. And the next two hitters that I want to touch on, Ryder Helfrich and Nolan Souza, who, again, I've talked about a good bit on this Locked On Razorbacks podcast, on the BAUMBASTIC podcast before. You heard about them a lot their freshman years. They were big pieces of the team. So you know them a little bit. Whatever you have in your brain, like if you're a Razorback baseball fan and you watched Nolan Souza and Ryder Helfrich as freshmen and you were like, man, I'd really like to see them do X, Y, and Z going into their sophomore years, whatever it is, whatever your criteria is, they are meeting it. They are taking those steps. They look like much more mature hitters, much more patient hitters. Ryder Helfrich, I think he may have struck out this past weekend once, but he went through 3 weeks of practice without striking out, which if you watched him last year, and frankly, just the type of power hitter he is, not something you ever expect to really see. But I think it speaks to the bat to ball skills that he's had, the fact that he's really coming into his own as an athlete and as a hitter. Ryder Helfrich, man, he's been tearing the cover off the ball. He's got as much power as anybody. He's had some of the longest home runs. He hit one about 458 feet last week. I mean, he's got some next level pop there. I think Ryder Helfrich has been so good at the plate that Arkansas is going to have to kind of make a decision with how they use him as a catcher, because he's obviously projected to be Arkansas's starting catcher. And it's rare that you see a guy who's catching every day hitting in the middle of the order, but I think that's a very real possibility with Ryder. And so that makes me kind of interested to see how Zane Becker and Elliot Peterson are used, because I think they're going to have to lean on those guys to catch some games because of how important Ryder Helfrich's bat is going to be. And Nolan Souza, man, I remember going back to his true freshman year coming into fall, he really struggled the first few weeks he was on campus. Really just, took some time adjusting to SEC pitching. And he's always been a very patient hitter. And DVH even kind of jokingly voiced some frustration that he's a little too patient. He would rather see him swing and see how far he could hit it every now and then. But you see a lot of that in him now, and he's like a little bit more evolved version of what he was as a freshman, which as a freshman showed off a ton of pop, got walked a good bit. You kind of see the makings of the kind of player he can be. Really good athlete, really good body type. I mean, both of these guys are very projectable. And I mean, again, you see the raw power. You even saw that when they were freshmen. They're taking those steps. There was a point where Souza had worked like 4 more walks than anyone on the team through fall practice through 3 weeks. And so, I mean, he's got some of that maturity, is coming into his own a little bit, but he's going the opposite way. When he gets down 2 strikes, you see him shorten up. He's had some singles to the opposite field in those 2 strike situations, which really have been impressive to me. He's hit some home runs to left field. He's pulled some balls. Like, Nolan Souza is becoming one of the more complete players on the roster from a position player standpoint. And again, it's just like he and Ryder, I feel like, have really taken the steps that you want to see guys like them take after pretty solid freshman years where they contributed a good bit. I feel like both of those guys are night and day better than what they were this time last year, although Ryder was really crushing in fall ball last year to his credit. But man, it's been really fun to watch those guys. And again, when you're thinking about this Arkansas lineup and what it's going to look like, you can't forget that the players on the roster have all gotten massively better. And I would include Vahiva Aloy in that context as well. I think he's been a lot better. And so we are going to talk about 2 more hitters that have been notable, some newcomers. But first, quick break. Razorback fans, you can start your season big on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and it's America's #1 sportsbook for a reason. When you've got a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and play some of those live bets, which I know I really like to do, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And with FanDuel, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Again, that's America's #1 sportsbook. If you're feeling confident, you feel like Arkansas is going to bounce back, they are 13.5-point underdogs, and they are plus 385 on FanDuel right now. So if you're feeling lucky, feeling bold, you might have to hit that. Again, that's the America's number one number one sports book, FanDuel.com. Again, you will get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. FanDuel Sportsbook, America's number one. Okay, two more guys are guys that, again, I'm not breaking any news for you here. By this point, you've heard about both of these dudes. But Brent Iredale and Brenton Clark. Iredale, I'll start with him. The JUCO transfer from New Mexico, hit 25 home runs last year, yada, yada. You know the story by now. We knew whenever he didn't hear his name called in the MLB draft and he decided to take his talents to Arkansas for his junior season, we knew that was a big deal. And we thought, okay, yeah, this is like a guy that you can probably plug into the starting lineup. Like, we all kind of knew he was that type of talent and had the chance to impact the team in a big way. But I got to be honest, I don't know if I knew definitively that Arkansas's best hitter was going to be coming from the JUCO ranks. Like, I didn't realize in that moment that this was going to be a number 2, number 3 hitter in the lineup who really like checks all the boxes. He might be the best player on the team, guys. Like, I'm not even joking. I don't know if he is. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. Obviously, he's got to show it and prove it in games against other SEC teams. But with what he's done to Arkansas pitching, man, it's hard not to take him seriously as arguably the best player on this team. And definitely from a position player standpoint, he's hitting over 400. He's hit 4 or 5 home runs. He's hit some doubles. He's stolen some bases. I've also been really impressed with his glove at third base. And I threw out this comparison the other day, but I really feel like he's the answer to the question of what would have happened if Caden Wallace would have gotten to stay for his junior year. Because everyone knows the story. Caden Wallace was supposed to play 3 years at Arkansas, but they moved the draft back to where his birthday fit in that window. So he was draft eligible as a sophomore, and now, the rest is history. I feel like Brent Iredale is almost like the baseball gods telling us, hey, this is what it would have looked like. He's a little Caden Wallace-y in the fact that he's a big, strong guy, but also one of the best athletes on the team, one of the fastest guys on the team. And the only position we've seen him play was third base. We know Caden Wallace would bounce around, played right field as a freshman. And so who knows? I mean, maybe Caden Wallace is a little bit better athlete, but I think Brent Iredale is just one of those guys. He just checks all the boxes. And guys, the first time you lay eyes on him, you can just tell, like, that's a hitter right there. That's what you want your hitters to look like. And so I've been really impressed with him. Like, I mean, again, I'm not breaking any news. You guys know he's been crushing it. But I really think he's one of, if not the best hitter in this Arkansas lineup. And frankly, that surprised me. Like, I don't know if I knew that was going to be the case. Reminds me a little bit of the way I felt about Caleb Cali whenever he first got to Arkansas, where it was just obvious right away, like, hey, this was a dude that was going to help right away in a big way. So we'll hope that he gets off to a little bit quicker start than Caleb Cali. But Brent Iredale, man, I've been super impressed. And Brenton Clark, the true freshman, man, it's been really impressive. And, again, we spoke about him a little bit last week and how he, we really got to take him seriously in this outfield discussion. I feel like he's forced the issue and he is now in that mix. And what's crazy is, like, he started off scorching high. I mean, there was a point where he was hitting like 590 or something like that. And I believe he's still hitting right around 500, if not over 500 for the entire fall. And he's hit some home runs. He's had some singles. He's gone the other way a little bit, but he's just done enough at this point to where it's like, all right, this is real. This isn't like some freshman who had some beginner's luck or, beat up on a few weak arms or anything like that. He's hitting whoever Arkansas throws at him, man. It's been really impressive. He hits lefties pretty well. Now, he will swing and miss against lefties. And so obviously, as with any freshman, that's going to be the question of whether or not he can stay in the lineup. That's ultimately why Nolan Souza couldn't stay in the lineup every day as a freshman last year. It's because hitting lefties is just a tough thing to do. But Brenton Clark, he's gotten a lot of really good experience hitting those left-handed. I mean, because Arkansas has plenty of left-handed pitchers on their roster. And so it's been good to see him kind of grow and adapt throughout those situations. And man, you make a mistake, he can really make you pay for it. Really good athlete, really good throwing arm in right field. Like, I said checks all the boxes. Like, he kind of does it. He has it all. I see no reason why he can't help Arkansas right away. Will it be as a everyday starter right off the bat? Who knows? I mean, Arkansas's got some really good outfielders. One guy that I didn't list in here, or two guys really that I didn't list in here, Rocco Pepe and Charles Davalon. I feel like have been as impressive as anybody. They've been every bit as advertised. And Logan Maxwell has been pretty solid as well. And so those three guys, along with Kendall Diggs, are going to be really tough for Brenton Clark to work his way into an everyday starting role. But he's done literally all he can do. And it's been long enough now. He even kind of cooled off a little bit for there. And I was kind of like, okay, he's coming back down to earth. Maybe he's not Superman after all. And then he rattled off like 3 hits in 2 days this past weekend. So it's like, I really think he's built enough of a sample size. He's done it against enough of a variety of arms to where he just has to be taken seriously. Again, I'm not saying you need to Sharpie him in at the leadoff spot and he's going to be guaranteed starting in the outfield. But if you don't consider him a serious candidate, you absolutely should. And we will move on to the pitching section of this after one more quick break from our ad sponsors. Hog fans, I'm here to talk to you about Gametime, which, as you know, is the best way to buy tickets. And their Gametime Picks feature has made it easier for fans to go attend their favorite live sporting events. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find out you're getting the best deals. Let's see. And, you can go to the Arkansas-Tennessee game, which there are still plenty of tickets available. Again, use that Gametime Picks feature, which features out all the fluff. Curated deals make it easier to find the best prices on great seats. You get a look at the panoramic view of what your seat looks like before you buy, which is huge. You get the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, which hopefully they don't cancel the event for Arkansas and Tennessee this week. But with the way this fan base is feeling, who knows, they might. But again, Gametime just makes it easy. Their nice little Gametime Picks toggle feature gives you the total up front. No surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first order. Again, that is code LOCKEDONCollege. Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. All righty, we are moving on to the pitching section. And the first name I got to throw out here is honestly the most mild one here. I don't have like a ton. I don't have a real soliloquy for you. But Landon Bidelshees, we still don't know how to pronounce his name. We'll figure it out by about mid-March. We will figure out how to say his name. But I'm talking about the Ohio State left-handed transfer pitcher, who most assume is going to be in the starting rotation for Arkansas. And he's been starting in the scrimmages that he's been participating in. Not a massive sample size for him. He's only thrown 4 2/3, 4 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. Those numbers are like not going to jump off the page at you or anything. But the reason that I have him here is because, one, he was touching 95 in his first outing, which simply is not something that I thought. But the reason that it sticks out to me is because I talk about knowing what to expect and how we just kind of expect Vahiva Aloy to be good. Frankly, with Zach Root, it hasn't been that way. Like, he's had a real rough go of it here in these scrimmages. And maybe we can have a conversation another day if that continues about, hey, what does Arkansas do? Because the guy they brought in to be potentially the ace is really struggling through fall practice. But I think that's what makes what Landon, not even going to try and say his last name, what Landon has done even more impressive is that he is just that guy that you can count on, that you know what you're getting. He's a strike thrower. When he was at Ohio State, he was more like 91, 93 for the most part, coming from the left side. And he's a big kid. Like, he's a big dude out there. So, like, he's got a little bit of an imposing figure to him. He's coming from the left side. If he's really going to be consistently like 94, 95, that would be certainly an improvement from what he was last year. So maybe there's going to be some more swing and miss, but he just throws a ton of strikes, fills up the zone, doesn't have those like 34 pitch innings that you just drive you nuts. And, I love Brady Tigert and I love Mason Molina. But you were just always looking at the pitch count, always kind of like, oh man, are they going to be able to get through 4? Are they going to get through 5? I think Landon is going to be a legitimate innings eater for Arkansas. I view him kind of in that Sunday starter role. We'll see how it works out. But I think he's going to be one of those Sunday starters where we're going to look up about halfway through the season and we're going to be like, man, why isn't he the Friday night starter? Like, I feel like he's been that good. And so I've been really appreciative of just him being as advertised. He's a strike thrower. He works quick, doesn't get a lot of hard contact. I mean, for a guy that is really more of a pitch to contact type of approach, doesn't really get hit hard much. A lot of weak ground balls, a lot of lazy pop flies. I think he's going to be a guy that you guys can really appreciate because, again, Gabe Gackle, super high level talent, but it's his first year as a starter. We don't really know what that's going to look like. And based on his last few weeks of pitching in fall practice, it's going to be really good. And I have no doubt. I mean, Gabe Gackle is just one of those dudes. He's got the talent. He's got the mentality, the makeup. I have no doubt he's going to be a good starting pitcher. But in his first year in the SEC as a starter, I would expect there's going to be some weeks where maybe he only goes 3 1/3. Maybe he only goes 4 innings, or maybe it's 5 and he throws like 120 pitches, and Arkansas has to use a ton of bullpen work to get the game one win. I think having a guy like Landon on that Sunday or Saturday, whatever it ends up being for him, or Friday, who knows? But I think he's going to be one of those guys where you can just hand him the ball and know you're getting 5, 6, 7 innings of work. He's going to throw a ton of strikes. He's going to work quick. Your defense is going to be engaged because they know that he works quick. And I think Arkansas can really use that, especially because there's a lot of guys on this Arkansas pitching staff who are super talented, a lot of which are young, and you don't really know what to do, know how to assess their roles. I think there's something to be said about having a guy who you just can count on, and I think that's what Landon Beidelshees is. I also want to mention another guy, Gage Wood, who literally, I mean, could be a starter, could be an ace reliever. I got to be honest, guys. I've been pushing the agenda of like, hey, use Gage Wood as your do everything reliever, and just that's the best way to use him. I feel like at this point, man, like he's been so good. Again, you just got to take him seriously as a Friday night starting candidate. That's how good he's been. Based on my extremely unofficial numbers I have here for him, he's gone 7 innings, allowed 2 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 12 strikeouts for Gage Wood. So if you want to know if he's kind of taking those next step and he's making the progression we all hope he can make, he has. I think he got some valuable experience in the Cape Cod League this past summer. And so it's been really good to see him kind of build on that. And he looks like a guy who's ready to be a dude as a junior. He no longer looks like the freshman who's a little bit concerned out there, like, oh, are they going to hit me? And, you know, I mean, he had to work through some of that as a true freshman. And he got some valuable experience there. I feel like everything he's gone through in his career has kind of shaped him for this moment. And I feel like Gage Wood is ready to be the guy for Arkansas's pitching staff. Now, who knows whether we'll see what the role ends up being, if it's a weekend starter role, or if they do kind of like they take my advice from a couple of weeks ago and say, hey, just use him as a do everything reliever who's going to throw 67 innings, 60 to 70 innings. Like, I'm perfectly fine either way, but I think you guys should have a lot of confidence when Gage Wood's on the mound. He's throwing a ton of strikes, getting a ton of swings and misses. It's rare you see someone throw more strikes and their swing and miss rate is going up, but Gage Wood is somehow doing that, man. He's mixing speeds effective. He's got a legitimate arsenal. Man, he looks really good. I don't know how else to say it. And another guy I want to touch on real quick, Tate McGuire is my number 3 pitcher that has stood out. Now he's only thrown 4 1/3 innings. Hasn't been like, and really, I wouldn't even say he's like blown anybody away. Like, he's been unbelievable. He does have 5 strikeouts in those 4 1/3 innings, just the 1 run, just the 1 walk. But I feel like last year he was a talented pitcher who you could see the talent. You could see he had some dynamite in that right arm. But the strike throwing consistency wasn't there. I don't know if the command, just overall, the makeup was quite, I don't know if he was quite ready to truly help Arkansas in big moments on the weekend last year. And so for a guy that's coming in as a sophomore, and again, he got some valuable experience in the Cape Cod League, getting to start some games, work 4 and 5 innings against legitimate lineups. That definitely helps him. But that was kind of the question I had, is like, what does he look like this fall? Does he look like a guy who really has that confidence and carries himself like he's a guy that's really going to help Arkansas on the weekends? And he absolutely does, man. He throws a lot of strikes, which has been encouraging. He mixes speeds well, and his fastball is just firm. Like, it's like 93, 94. I'm sure he'll flirt with 95, 96 here and there, but it's just a very firm fastball that he's locating really well. I think he's another guy that's going to end up being a reliever for them this year, but I think he's one that can stretch out. So, like, don't be surprised if there's a game this year where Tate McGuire comes in the 4th or 5th inning and just goes 4 innings or closes the sucker out. Like, I think he's got that type of capability. I also think he's one of those dudes you can limit him to maybe 1, 2 innings here and maybe let the horse eat a little bit. Like, he's going to be one of those guys. But whatever the case may be, like, I'm fully sold. Tate McGuire is a legitimate factor in Arkansas's pitching staff. I think he's going to be a real piece in the bullpen that's going to help them on the weekends. And we'll see if they end up kind of grooming him for a starting role, because I think, you watch him pitch, he mixes speeds, he throws 3 pitches for strikes. I think he's one of those dudes who has the makeup and the skill set of a starter. And so we'll see if that's where he ends up next year. But I think this year, like, I think people are going to be really pleased with the progress that he's made. And 2 more quick ones here. Cole Gibler. Both of these are freshmen, by the way. Cole Gibler. Again, I've spoken about him on this show before, so this may not be breaking news to any of you guys, but he's now had 4 outings. He has gone 5 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, I believe all of which came in 1 outing. Because he got roughed up a little bit in his 3rd outing. It didn't go great for him. The command was kind of in and out there for a little bit. He has the 3 walks, 12 punch outs in 5 2/3 innings. I'm going to say that again. 12 punch outs in 5 2/3 innings. That's a pretty loud statement for a freshman. And again, I think he's a future starter for Arkansas. I think the command is going to need to catch up a little bit if he's going to actually end up starting games. So I don't think it's going to be this year unless it's maybe midweek situation. But I think Cole Gibler, frankly, is a candidate to close games for Arkansas. He's that electric from the left side, 95, 96. Again, it's not much to it. When you're left-handed and you throw 95, 96, like you can help any baseball team anywhere. And Cole Gibler is absolutely on track to help the Arkansas Razorbacks this season. And we'll see. He's gonna be a fun one to watch grow. And I also think it's worth noting that it's not uncommon at all for freshmen pitchers or position players to just suck during their first fall on campus. Like it's just not out of the norm. Like frankly, Gabe Gackle, you saw how good he was last year as a freshman at Arkansas. I wouldn't say he didn't stink, but like he definitely wasn't doing that when he first started. Like he was giving up his fair share of home runs. He was having his rough innings here and there. He would be that guy that would come out one inning and look really good, and then come out the next and walk two, give up a bomb or something like that. Like there were certainly questions about whether or not he was going to be able to help in the way that he did. And clearly, wasn't anything to worry about. Gage Wood, I remember his first outing as a Razorback in fall practice. Walk, hit by pitch, home run to Peyton Stovall. I'll never forget it because right there in that moment, I was like, yeah, I don't know. This kid from Batesville, he's probably a year away. Fast forward 5 months from then, and he's closing games for Arkansas. He was the most important piece in their bullpen. And so that just kind of tells you that sometimes it takes these freshmen a little bit to work things out. And I say all that to say with Cole Gibler, to see a guy who has had flashes of real dominance this early on is a sign you should never ignore. Again, we'll see what his role ends up being and how much they end up trusting him once the season comes around. But the talent is legit. He looks like a blue chipper, man. Like he looks like the type of guy you expect Arkansas to have, with the level they recruit at and with what Matt Hobbs has been doing. I have pretty much zero doubt Cole Gibler is going to be a dude for the Arkansas Razorbacks on the mound. And now here's another freshman that you guys, I'll be honest with you, you might not be expecting this one. And if you look at his numbers for the fall, it'd be hard to make the case that he's been a standout. But I'm talking about Tag Andrews, the Central Arkansas kid, man, the true freshman. His first outing as a Razorback was not too dissimilar from what Gage Woods was. He gave up, I think, 3 or 4 home runs in one inning. Just got roughed up, man. Like it was just a tough adjustment to, college baseball, which it is for a lot of these guys. And, that happens. And I remember in the moment just kind of being like, okay, he's a talented kid, got roughed up. We'll see if he can bounce back. And the way that he has responded since then has been so impressive. The progress he's made just from week 1 to week 4 has been astronomical. His most recent outing, he goes 2 2/3, strikes out 3, didn't give up a run. And they brought him into a situation with a runner on base, and it was someone in Vahiva. I can't remember who the other one was, but he strikes both of them out. And I'm like, oh wow, like that's notable. And then he comes back and goes 2 more scoreless innings. Tag Andrews, he's throwing a lot of strikes. He's throwing more and more strikes as he gets more experience. His fastball's in that low 90s range, like 91, 93, but he's got a little bit of that 3/4 arm slot. Like it's a fastball that's got some giddy up to it. His spin rates are really, really solid. I was getting a little peek behind the TrackMan and kind of getting an eyeball at it. I mean, the way that he's bounced back is really impressive to me because, you see that happen a lot where these kids lose confidence after getting roughed up a little bit because a lot of these guys aren't used to giving up home runs like that. And so it wouldn't have surprised me at all if he just kind of struggled to ever really put it together this fall. And then, we'll see what he could do, maybe come back in the spring and try again. But the fact that he was able to make these adjustments and come back and have a couple really good outings back to back speaks a little bit about his mentality. And honestly, man, like I think he's got some dynamite in that right arm. Like I think he's got a chance to help Arkansas. We'll see. It's an uphill battle in terms of working this year. But if we're talking about freshmen that have stood out to me, Cole Gibler is the one that jumps out, and Carson Wiggins is super talented. Like I feel like he's a pretty safe bet to help Arkansas in some form or fashion. But Tag Andrews, man, that's a kid that's really impressed me here the last few weeks, and I look forward to seeing his growth and seeing what he can do moving forward. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Again, that's just 10 names there. I probably could have added a few more. And again, it's not like the 10 best players on the team or anything, but I hope you enjoyed that. Just a little bit of a capsule of what this fall ball's been like and some of the biggest stories I've seen. Let me know in the comments what you guys are curious about with this Arkansas baseball team, what you want to hear me talk about. As the sample size grows, I feel like I'm more qualified to speak on some of these guys and what they can bring to the table. And man, I'm looking forward to seeing them this Friday at the Fall Classic. They're inviting fans to come out. Concessions will be open. Parking's free. Come out and see the Arkansas Razorbacks play some baseball, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then next week, they will be scrimmaging Oklahoma State. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. And I look forward to covering that and breaking it down for you. Until next time, it's been another great edition of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Appreciate you guys for